Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'm sharing with you a quick tutorial on how I use my Hydrangea petal template. So for this template, it's designed so that you can add a little pearl in the center, and I just made this because there are other templates that I use that I liked but I didn't like quite as much, and so this is just something that I really enjoyed making. A lot of people asked for the template, so I have listed it on my Etsy shop. The link is down below. So I'd like to share just a few ideas of how I use the hydrangea petal. So here is a 6-inch ball or a foam ball, and I've cut it in half. So what I've done here is I've added a lot of little pieces of this hydrangea petal with a little adhesive pearl in the middle, and I've glued it all over the 6-inch foam ball. And so this alone would be really nice to mix in with different flowers. It has a lot of what I like to call visual interest. Your eyes tend to be drawn to something like this because there's just a lot of texture, there's a lot going on, and it's just visually pleasing. So this is something that you can mix into your flower sets, or this could be used as a center for a larger flower. So here I have an example of that. So this is my template 31 petal, and I have just made 2 layers, 6 petals, and I've done nothing to the petals, but I did add a foam ball with the hydrangea petals in the middle, and to me that adds a lot of interest. And to me that adds a lot of detail to the flower. I kept the petals themselves very simple, but then your eyes tend to be drawn towards the center here. And so to me it looks really great. This is kind of how my style is, but you can definitely just dress up the petals as well, whatever you like. I think just adding that very unique flower center in the middle just makes the flower pop. So I've also done something similar with this flower here, and like in this one, I actually used 2 different paper colors, so a darker color underneath and then a lighter color on top. And so here I've kept it purples, and I just think it adds a little more definition to it. It looks a little more realistic, so to speak, just having the 2 different colors. And so that's one way just to use these little hydrangea petals for your flower sets. I just really like this because I just find it's a little elegant, and so that's what I like to add to my flowers. Before I get started on actually making one, I do want to say that I have an older video for hydrangea petal template. It was using a punch where you can just punch a number of these little flower shapes, and I also used a little different technique there, but I'm going to link the video down below in case you're interested. So with these hydrangea petals, what I like to do is just mix them in, and I am grabbing some of my roses to kind of show you what it looks like when you just surround flowers around hydrangea petal. I just think it looks really nice to have that there. So I have a couple extra, and just mixing that in just makes it look, to me, very visually pleasing. So I like the way that this looks, and so if I had more, obviously this would grow. One thing before I forget is I do have a hydrangea leaf that is included with the template. It's just an SVG for a leaf, and so this is something that you can add to your flower sets. I think it adds a nice little touch to any flower set that you have. Rather than just roses, you can add little hydrangeas. You kind of get the point. Okay, so I will be using another foam ball. This is 6 inches. I think the actual width is, or the diameter is actually 5.8 inches, and so it's close to 6. I'm just going to call it 6. This is probably one of the larger sizes that I can get at the craft store. I know there are larger foam balls, but this is something that's readily available. And the larger you go, the more work there is. It does take a lot of work to make this flower, and so I try to keep it under 6. These little ones here are actually about 2.5 to 2.75 wide, and so it's pretty tiny. I think that this is a really nice size. It makes it really fast. The number of petals obviously goes down on size, so if you go with a smaller ball, obviously you would use less than you would here. So one thing I want to note is with these styrofoam balls, I do recommend getting styrofoam and not the crinkly kind. I think I might have one. So when I mean the crinkly kind, this is something I pulled from my craft stash. It's the kind that looks like snow, I guess. A lot of the pieces would break off and it would look like little snow, but this would tend to melt if you're trying to glue paper flowers to it. So I would avoid using the crinkly kind and get the smooth styrofoam. And in terms of making the petals, it's actually super easy. Just cut out a bunch, prepare it. So I have cut out 2 colors here. So here's a light pink and then a darker pink. And then what I do is I just tack these two together, and using a knitting needle, so this is just a double pointed needle. I have several of these laying around, and so this is just a kind of like a thin rod. You can use maybe like round chopsticks or a pencil or anything like that. So with the double pointed needle, what I do is I actually just hold it across the petal, and then I just push the petals up to cover kind of the sides of this double pointed needle, and then I just push up, so that just gives it a little slight curl to each petal, and that just makes it go really quickly. So really all the work is actually just in cutting it out and adding that little bit of curl. So you get kind of really good at it if you're doing a bunch. And then I just add a tiny bit of glue, and then I offset the petal, so I just rotate it. So when I glue it, all I do is rotate this top petal so that the bottom petal here sits between the petals from the previous layer. So then what I do next is just add a little adhesive pearl to the center of this petal. So I think the measurement for these little adhesive pearls is 6 millimeters, and so that's a really great size. This one has a great adhesive, so I just like to take it off and stick it right onto the hydrangea petal without having to glue it. There are some pearls I've purchased where the adhesive isn't really that great, and so I've had to actually use hot glue to secure it. But essentially this is what the hydrangea petal looks like, and you just create a ton of these. In the past, what I did use was the pearl tipped pins, like sewing pins, like this. So it's like a sewing pin that has a pearl at the tip. And what I would do in the past is just actually give that curl to the petals, like that. And then rather than really having to glue it, I would just take the pin and poke it right through. And that way there is that little pearl tip, and then I didn't have to use any adhesive if I didn't want to. And this is still an appropriate way to do it if you feel confident that none of the pins would fall out. So that would be my main concern, is that if you have children, or you have children that will be around these and they like to touch things, and they may accidentally dislodge the pin and maybe hurt themselves. That's one main concern, so I actually avoid doing that now. But I've created a number of these petals already, that way you don't have to sit and watch me create a ton of them. And then all I do to actually just glue it is just literally glue them down and just stuff them in. And what I like to do is I actually like to scrunch it up first, and then add a little bit of glue to the very end. And then I glue it where I think is right smack dab the middle. And so it doesn't have to be perfect, but somewhere in the middle would work well. So you can imagine that if you are packing these flowers in densely, then you need more of these little pieces than you would if you actually had it more relaxed. So if I just spread that out, and then I just laid the next one next to it. That is actually perfectly fine if that's the style that you want. You would use less petals than what I had recommended in my recommendation chart in the template. But I tend to like it so that the petals sit more upright and they look squished together. That's just my preference. But if you're fine with the more relaxed look, by all means do it, because it takes less petals. So what I do is I just glue the second one and I push up really close to it. Not enough that there's some resistance, but just really close so that it covers up that space. And then what I do is I like to add in one line of flowers straight down the middle. That helps divide the foam ball in half, and then it just helps me tackle the project better rather than just gluing aimlessly. So I usually like to glue it half down the middle and then just start on one side, and it's just a matter of gluing them all together. Okay, so once I have sort of one across the equator of this foam ball, what I like to do is then just divide it in half. And so usually I like to go for the right side because I'm right-handed. And then what I like to do is I actually glue a line across the very bottom, and then I start filling it in. For me, it's easier doing that where I glue along this way so I space it better, because there are sometimes where, and I did this on purpose here, where everything looks really nice and tight right here, and then you see on this edge here, all the petals sit really low, and so it's not as densely covered in this area here, and it looks different. And sometimes that can happen because if you're just going straight down, to me, at least is what happens with me. So then what happens is I just start losing some of how I'm gluing it. So if here it's densely packed, and then here I started to loosen up just a little bit so that it doesn't look uniform. So that's just one way for me to keep the same sort of spacing between petals if I just divide it in half and then also just start filling it in that way. So I usually will just add the petals along the bottom here, and then I'll do that all along this way and then start filling it in. Okay, so you can see where I've glued it along the bottom edge here. So all I do now is just start filling it in, and then it helps me keep that spacing as I mentioned. So this just helps a lot for me visually so that I keep the project consistent. So I'll go ahead and just fill all this in. Okay, so now I'm actually done gluing all the little pieces. There really wasn't anything you missed out on in terms of footage. All it was just gluing every single piece I could and cramming it in every single space. So I am going to do more of a close-up shot so you can see what it looks like. So you can see it's densely packed in there. This is the way that I like it. I just think it adds the right touch. And with more petals packed in, it makes the darker pink underneath look a lot better. You can see it a lot more. And I just think that it's a really nice look. To have two different colors, it makes it look a little more realistic, like true to life, rather than just straight pink or purple or any other color. It adds a little bit of a touch where it makes it look real because there's more than one color. And so overall, I love the results. I like the way the flowers come out when I'm using larger styrofoam balls rather than smaller ones. So the small ones are nice for flower centers, but the big ones I feel like have more of a wow factor. So let me know if you have any questions down below. I did sort of breeze through this video really quickly because I didn't think there was a whole lot to talk about it. I will leave links down below to some of the supplies that were something similar. If you're interested, go ahead and check that out. The Etsy listing is live right now, and so it is in my shop. All my templates are 50% off if you are interested. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.